And so you you were in this amazing experience. You moved to America after being in England, and you've been in America pretty much since then. And so then fortune had it that you got recruited by probably at the time a mid-sized tech company called Amazon that was mostly in the books. Uh, so describe Amazon when you joined. I'm just very curious to know what it was like back then. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the absolute best times of my life. So I was working at the time for a company called VA Software, which, folks may not recognize that name, but would probably recognize the name Slashdot or SourceForge. VA was very, very deeply in the open source space. It started out as a hardware company, commodity hardware and Linux operating system. In the dot bomb, the hardware business got wiped out, but all of these open source properties were in high demand. So I'd been there for about 3 or 4 years. We'd got the company into profit, first quarter of profit. And it had been a great ride, and I really loved the people there. And I was thinking, look, should I, commit to my CEO and sign up for another few years, to help them, the next stage of evolution, or maybe it's, should I be thinking about doing something else? And literally, I mean, I kid you not, as I'm going through that process, the phone on my desk rings. I pick it up. There's a lady on the phone, and she's like, we'd love you to come and talk to, a company up in the Pacific Northwest. And I said, well, look, I'm a Linux guy, I'm a Unix guy. I'm not going to work at Microsoft. And she's like, no, it's okay. It's not Microsoft. I'm like, oh, it must be Amazon then. And, so this is, beginning of 2006. So I went up, battery of interviews all day long. Jeff was my lunchtime interview. And that was quite entertaining.
Wow.
We hit it off. We had a good time. And at the end of the interview, he said, well, what do you think? And I'm like, well, I'll come and work here, Jeff. I'll come and work here, but I need 2 things. One, he interviewed me in the Pacific Medical Building up on Beacon Hill, this beautiful old Art Deco, what used to be a hospital. I'm like, I want to work in this building. He's like, I have no control over that. And I said, the second thing is I want to ride on your Segway that was sitting outside his office. He's like, knock yourself out, but the battery is flat. So, and I remember my last interview at the end of the day with Rick Dalzell. And it was like 7 o'clock at night, and I'm just chat. Rick sits back and he's like, what time did you start interviewing this morning? I'm like, I don't know, 8 o'clock this morning. And it's like, it's now 7:30. How many cups of coffee have you had today? I'm like, I don't know, several pots at least. He's like, okay, that's fine. I walked out of that building. I'm like, if they offer me a job, it is a no-brainer. I want to come and work with these guys just because it was so exciting. And they're inventing, a brand new industry. So when I joined, the company was maybe, $6 billion GMV. Not huge, not small, but just, an amazing opportunity to be there through all of the changes and the evolution. And, folks will say to me, oh, Amazon, really well-run company and da-da-da. I'm like, you kidding. It was, we're making shit up as we go along. But everybody laser focused on the customer. And, every company in the world says they're customer focused. Amazon really got that. Jeff really got that. The people who worked directly for him really got that. It went right the way, it went right the way through the organization. And that made a big difference. Every question, every thought was, how does this benefit the customer? And I think that's absolutely the right way of doing it. And it's not that the customer's always right. Well, sometimes the customer can be stupid or not very thoughtful. It's what's the best way of delivering value to our customers. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. I ran the website platform team for 7 years. I shifted into the digital platform team for the last year I was there. But we were making stuff up and learning, and oh God, the number of mistakes that I made. I mean, it's just legion. But there was never any finger pointing and getting put in the penalty box for extended period of time. It was, you make a mistake, you understand, you acknowledge it, you define what you would do differently next time. You make sure that everybody else that could make the same mistake would follow from that pattern. And then you get back on the horse and you do it again and again and again and again and again. So that environment, that opportunity to learn and grow. And I remember us all getting, all the VPs were hauled into a conference room in PacMed, probably towards the end of 2006, maybe beginning of 2007. And Jeff, and there were like 20 of us in the room. And Jeff stands up and says, all right, we're going to be an $8 billion company this year. My goal is 100 billion. And we're all sitting there like, this guy's out of his mind. We thought he was just nutty crazy. I came back to my team and, I relayed this to them and they're looking at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, okay, anybody here running a $100 billion company? Nope. Okay. So whatever got us to where we are now, sure as heck ain't going to get us to $100 billion. So we got to figure out what are our gaps, not just technologically, but culturally from a leadership perspective. We got to figure out what those gaps are. We've got to go and close those gaps. And that was the journey for the 7 years that came after that. But it had so much latitude to deliver success and deliver value, and so much latitude to mess stuff up and make mistakes. Because if you're moving fast, there's really not many decisions that can't be unpicked pretty quickly. But you can never be all knowing. You want to be deeply thoughtful about things, but then get stuff out in front of merchants and customers. And get the data flow back to inform then how you refine those solutions. And that way of working and that way of thinking, super, super valuable. I thoroughly enjoyed it.